The second half of 2023 begins, but in the River City, it's the beginning of the term for elected officials. As Mayor Donna Deegan begins her work, we're meeting one of the newest city council members, Mike Gay. The Supreme Court issued rulings that people are still trying to sort out. Plus, Russia's continued assault on Ukraine. Where does America stand? Green Beret and U.S. Representative Mike Waltz joins us. Plus, writer A.G. Genkarski on This Week in Jacksonville. So glad you're with us today. Voters elected Mike Gay to represent District 2 on Jacksonville City Council. Councilman Gay is with us right now, and it's a chance for us to get to know you and for our viewers to get to know you a little bit more. First impressions, only a short holiday week since you officially have become a city council member, but what are those first impressions on your new role at City Hall?
Well, it's pretty well as expected, Kent. You know, it's been a short week, but you know, it's been 2 years that I've been working on this to get into this seat, and so you know, it's been business as usual. Talking with the people of the district and their needs, and getting everything in order to get this ball rolling down there.
So you were just telling me a little bit. Your personal history is you grew up and still live in the district you now represent.
Yes, sir. I've always lived here in District 2 as it's laid out and been redistricted. So you know, I'm a Jacksonville-born, Jacksonville native. Went to the mighty Andrew Jackson High School for Fighting Tigers. You know, so I love this city and look for the best for it.
Councilman, your campaign platform, I was looking this up, getting ready for our interview. Bringing experience, integrity, and transparency to council that you want to work to ensure Jacksonville becomes the best it can be. So what does that look like for you? What does that mean?
You know, it is in running for office, one of my main platforms that I pushed out was this is not a career change for me. This is not, I'm trying to advance anything in my personal life. I'm at a point in my life where I'm ready to commit and help the citizens of the North Side in District 2, East Arlington, you know, and the city as a whole. You know, I think there's a lot that we can do better. And so, yeah, we need to have an open dialogue with the people to see what's going on and where their money's being spent.
So when you say a lot we can do better, as I was, again, from your campaign and what have you, and I know that the budget is the biggest item on the agenda for the new mayor, just 2 weeks. The 17th of July, she has to submit that proposal to you and the council. What's first for you as we approach really this first full council meeting coming up this week?
You know, as for our district, we have such a need for our citizens, our infrastructure. You know, a lot of the roads, majority of the roads in District 2 are the same roads I drove on when I first got my driver's license. They haven't been touched.
A bit, is what you're saying.
You know, and it is time. We've seen development and progress everywhere else. We've seen a better Jacks plan in 2003, but District 2 didn't get better. And so it's time that we stand up and get our due out there to take care of our people.
You spoke in the campaign about trying to end what you call habitual overspending, and usually conservatives talk about that as a priority, but Jacksonville's had Republican mayors for decades, with that one exception, 2011 to 2015. So what happened? Have Republicans, have those mayors or the city council, have they overspent in that time, in your opinion?
Well, you know, overspending in, I say, inappropriate spending to where we need to have it in the proper format and the proper places to be spent for our citizens. And when, you know, we're constantly wanting to give incentives and investment to businesses that keep coming in, and we're not taking care of our people that's been here year after year, plowing and planting and working in this city, that we push them off to the side, that, yeah, we've got to get that back. We've got to make that the focus, you know, but then there's so much of say, we got to police our nonprofits. We got to police the money that's going out and make sure, you know, I'm all for nonprofits, but I'm for effective spending. We need to make sure the money's being spent right. There's some nonprofits that are not being funded. and they're doing a tremendous work. And we've got to kind of change our compass in the way we're looking at it and get those to the forefront.
So that's an example of where you say, hey, maybe misspent or not well spent money from City Council or from the City of Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, some of the projects that we want to do that are just to say I did them, you know, a monument project, so to speak. We need to kind of pull back from that and reevaluate. You know, we've got septic tank issues. There's so many core functions that we've got to get addressed in this city.
Yeah. Maybe final question for you. What's your expectation on being able to, as City Council members, work with the new Donna Deegan administration?
You know, I'm 100% optimistic and positive about it. In the conversations, the meetings that we've had, and hearing her openness, that I feel like she's going to be a mayor that's got her eyes open and her ears open to see what's going on and hear what the people are saying. And I'm all for that, and I'm really, you know, ready to get behind what we need to do with the mayor for the betterment of our city. And that's what we all are here for, is for the betterment of our city.
Mike Gay, City Councilman, District 2, it comes through, born and bred and invested in the city of Jacksonville. Thanks for your time today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, well, stay with us. Jacksonville native Michael Waltz serves in Congress and is wrapping up a nearly 30-year military career in the U.S. Army. The only Green Beret in the House of Representatives. Joining us next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
From the Supreme Court to decisions on Capitol Hill, I spoke with Representative Michael Waltz this week on a number of issues, including the tensions that continue between Russia, Ukraine, and the worried nations watching what happens.
I think what we're seeing right now is what happens when deterrence fails, when our enemies stop respecting the United States as a global superpower. And whether that is deterrence failing in Europe, where Russia thought it could get away with invading a neighbor, with China threatening Taiwan and its neighbors, with Iran racing towards a nuke and threatening to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, or Kim Jong-un in North Korea threatening all of Asia, plus the United States as well. When our adversaries smell weakness, when they don't believe the United States has the capability and the political will to stand for our allies and for our interests, they're going to be on the march. And they respect strength and steel only. And that's why we're seeing the world on fire right now. So we need to restore deterrence. We need to get back to Reagan's principles of peace through strength. That is something I'm absolutely trying to do as a member of the armed services and intelligence community, and push this administration back in the right direction.
It seems pretty clear that NATO nations, that the United States, that a lot of our side of the globe, at least, is not in favor of what's going on from Vladimir Putin's leadership, from Russia and going into Ukraine and all of that. But there's not a sense that the United States should be doing more militarily, is there, to support Ukraine?
I think if you want to keep troops out of that war, U.S. troops out of that war, it makes sense to give the Ukrainians the beans and bullets they're asking for as they're doing the fighting and dying. We should believe Putin when he says he wants to reconstitute the old Soviet Union. And if he does that, that means pulling NATO in and the United States because of our treaty alliances. However, when it comes to giving the Ukrainians even more than we already have, I have a measure to force the Europeans to do that. The Europeans, particularly France, Germany, and Italy, need to step up. They've only provided, Kent, a fraction of what they promised. For example, France's economy is 4 times the size of Poland's, yet Poland has provided 4 times as much military aid to Ukraine, and all of Europe together has only provided half of what the United States has. So while I overall think it's the right policy to stop Putin now rather than later, Europe has got to do its fair share, and I have legislation designed to force them to do that.
So when it comes to legislation, obviously the big fight in the first half of this year, one of the big fights on Capitol Hill was about our national debt and increasing that debt ceiling. How do you feel the country is right now? Here we're into the second half of 2023 and making some of those adjustments because inflation is still an issue. A lot of people are predicting bad things for the economy up in front of us.
Well, I think underscoring inflation, to your point, has been Biden's energy policy. When you're shutting down American gas, which is cleaner, by the way, than any other form of gas in the world, when you've moved away from nuclear and you just have this obsession with wind and solar, which, by the way, the vast majority of that's made in China. So you're just trading one dependency for another. That's exactly the wrong policy. We have enough gas in North America and Canada and Mexico and the United States to power ourselves and to largely power the world. And so when you restrict that, you create dependencies on our adversaries and you drive up the price, and transportation and fuel undergirds everything. So the first bill from the Republican House of Representatives was designed to restore us to energy independence. And then secondly, to your point on the debt, I give Speaker McCarthy a lot of credit. I think he got a decent deal, but we have to cut more on what we call the non-defense side. All of these grants and programs, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Green New Deal, it is just out of control. One of the things that we tried to do is pull back the unspent COVID money to the tune of $30 billion and retire a portion of our debt. But we have a long way to go. The spending's out of control. What I won't stand for is doing it on the backs of our troops. While the Pentagon should reform itself, while every dollar that we save needs to be reinvested, we can't go for massive defense cuts while our adversaries are on the march and have massive military buildups.
That is something that was really in the headlines because of the Supreme Court ruling on the president's debt relief plan for students. How do you think that goes forward? And do you agree with what the Supreme Court said that really was not the constitutional way to do that?
Well, it was unconstitutional because Biden tried to do it on a law that was actually passed to help the troops after 9/11. So it was completely unconstitutional. Even Nancy Pelosi said it was unconstitutional. Look, this was an election year gimmick right before the midterms. Not only was it constitutional, though, it was unfair. 87% of Americans do not have student loan. And over half of those who do are doctors and lawyers and those with graduate degrees with a high propensity to pay it off. But from a basic fairness standpoint, why should nearly 90% of Americans have to pay off the student loans of others? And while the left will say, well, what about the Paycheck Protection Program? That was, that was part of America helping others, but that was because of a government mandate in the middle of a national emergency. Very, very different situation. Taking on debt to go get a college degree is an individual decision. Part of that contract is to pay back your bills and to pay your bills and not force other Americans through an unconstitutional provision to do it. So, look, I fully support that amongst many of the other strong rulings that the Supreme Court just made.
Supreme Court has certainly seen some criticism saying, hey, they're reinterpreting precedent. They're going against precedent because it's been stacked as a conservative high court. What are your feelings on that argument?
Well, I mean, it's amazing how the other side of the aisle and the left cheered on the Supreme Court for so many decades, but now that it's made some rulings that they disagree with, they completely want to tear it down, add members, put in term limits, and completely restructure it just because they disagree with it. And I think that is just phenomenally dangerous. To I think talk about completely restructuring the basic institutions of this country because they interpret laws in a way with which you disagree or they overturn previous precedents is dangerous. There's a lot of talk about protecting democracy around here. That's in my view, completely anti-democratic.
Congressman Michael Waltz stepped into the House of Representatives in the seat vacated by future Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So does Waltz support DeSantis for president in 2024? We're going to get his answer for you. You need to join us on News4Jax Plus on your streaming device. You're going to find this interview under This Week in Jacksonville in that channel. All right, so News4Jax veteran Jim Pickett, he's pretty plugged in when it comes to local politics in Northeast Florida. So is our next guest, A.G. Gancarski, next on This Week in Jacksonville. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
Thanks for staying with us today. So FloridaPolitics.com is one of the places you're going to find his work. Joining us right now, political reporter A.G. Gancarski. A.G., we don't bump into each other as much as we used to out of that city council meeting, the campaign rally, but you seem to be everywhere, obviously well-connected, plugged in, and covering a lot of different topics. So I wanted to start here. Give me your view on the team that new Mayor Donna Deegan has assembled for the city of Jacksonville.
You know, it's an interesting team of rivals. You see alums from the Alvin Brown administration, Karen Bowling, Chief Administrative Officer. Kelly O'Leary's in the mix also. You also see some city council people, Garrett Dennis, right. Al Ferrero for neighborhoods. Scott Wilson's got a role. It's going to be interesting to see how general counsel goes with that too. But, you know, it looks like the campaign, crossover Republicans, Democrats, and, you know, it's really something where it's giving people a positive vision and something that's sort of a break from the last 8 years, which was, you know, very hard partisan Republican.
Have you heard that from people, oh boy, breath of fresh air, or some hopefulness about things are maybe different?
Yeah, I mean, you hear that from citizens. I mean, the city council, because it's supermajority Republican, you know, it's a little bit wait-and-see attitude. But, I mean, Deegan's ability to sort of bridge divides personally has really helped with this initial period.
You mentioned some of this, but that bipartisan component is real when you consider Al Ferrero, Anna Brochet, Mike Weinstein, and a lot to be said for the selection, as you just mentioned, of Karen Bowling, Lakeisha Burton, too.
Yeah, Lakeisha Burton's going to be an interesting counterpoint to T.K. Waters. Waters obviously is very political in the campaign. Burton will serve as the mayor's office representative, kind of checking it. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they work together for the next 4 years.
So we spoke earlier in the show with City Councilman Mike Gay, new District 2. We talked about the budget a little bit, but what's your read on these council committees and maybe specifically finance?
Yeah, finance is going to be really interesting. Nick Howland, he's, you know, a pro at this point. He's been there for a while. I've asked him what he's going to do with the budget. He's been kind of coy about it, but it's a 5-2 Republican supermajority in that committee, sort of mirrors council that way. But it's got Randy White, a lot of heavy hitters on the GOP side. I think they're going to take a fine-tooth comb to this budget. There's going to be some questions. I don't know if it's going to be personnel or what. But the deviations from the Curry budget, I think, are going to be the things that are kind of flashpoints in August.
Any idea what those things might be, what those deviations may be?
Well, you've got the diversity and inclusion officer, that's Parvez Ahmed. I think that's one that they may kick the tires on, depending on what the capital improvement budget looks like. That might be another one. They do have more millage collections than they expected, so that's a good thing. There's money to spend. But I think the city council will push back just to kind of assert itself. We saw that during the Alvin Brown administration. I think we'll see it again.
So we've heard in these last few weeks about former Mayor Lenny Curry, his answer about what his legacy will be. What about Donna Deegan and the stadium renovations? I mean, for good or for bad, are the Jaguars going to be her legacy?
I think she's kind of stuck with that because this stadium deal is going to take a while to negotiate. The build is going to take anywhere from 2 to 4 years. There's also the district bills. So this is going to take up most of her term. If she has 2 terms, take most of that. So, you know, it's really something where she's not going to be able to do a lot more else. I mean, the jail's obviously something Ron Salem, the council president, wants. But there's only so many big ticket projects you can do in the city. And the stadium's going to block out a lot else, block out the borrowing capacity and other things like that.
So let's step into that for just a moment. Yeah, Council President Ron Salem says, move the jail, but that's not going to be free. So what are the odds that that can actually happen?
It's not going to happen his first year. So it won't happen while he's council president. But he can get studies done, he can have meetings. There are things he can do as council president to kind of move the process on, but they're not binding for probably the next council president, Randy White.
Yeah, so a priority, but you can only take that so far. So maybe final thing here, I referenced Mayor Curry's legacy. How do you think history remembers him, near term and long term? Because we know that the view changes over time.
Right. I mean, Mayor Curry dealt with a lot of issues, the pandemic, the aborted JEA sale, issues like that, but he did get pension reform through. He did add to police on the streets. He did a lot of infrastructure. He got the city's fiscal position stronger. And I think history will look at him more kindly than some of his present tense critics.
Yeah, in the moment, there are several of his critics, as you point, say, boy, didn't accomplish enough, but over time, we'll see how that shakes out. A.G. Ken Carsey, it's been too long. I'm glad to have you on. Thanks for making the time today.
Let's do this again. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so First Coast Connect on WJCT Public Media. They've got a new host, and he's with us next Sunday on This Week in Jacksonville. We will introduce or reintroduce you to Al Letson. Plus, Chris Miller won the election for an at-large seat on Jacksonville City Council. We're going to speak with a retired colonel in the United States Army. I'm Kent Justice. We thank you so much for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17, online at news4jax.com, and you can find us streaming on News4Jax Plus.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.